No, I think firstly, I'm just absolutely delighted to be here. Having started my GCC journey in Hyderabad in 2001, I don't think I would have imagined that I would be standing here talking about the future of GCCs, right, after probably 24 years. So I think it's kind of a full circle moment for me. I head the GCC service line in Cognizant. I think my claim to fame is once my name was announced, there were at least 5 other announcements that happened in the industry. So that's probably my claim to fame. But I think jokes aside, as part of we offering end-to-end GCC services to our clients, we are having a number of boardroom conversations with them, right? And what's coming out there is very clearly, what's the GCC of the future? Gone are the days where they would kind of sit with us and say, okay, I want to set up 500 people, and let's talk about HR operations, let's talk about finance, right? No. I think the question is, hey, do I really need to do a GCC? What is it that I will get as a GCC which I do not get from service providers like you, right? And that's a very tough question for us to answer, because we are very good at a lot of things, but also we know that GCCs bring a kind of a value that is very unique to the enterprise. I mean, they are becoming the center of the enterprise. So we then kind of sit and evaluate and say, look, there are certain functions, your IP, your products, et cetera, which should sit within your GCC, and which means you need to have a direct oversight, but you're also looking at powering the enterprise of tomorrow through your GCC, right? And all this is actually great, and I know I'm actually talking to a lot of, I would say, converts here, right? And I'm not going to do the whole thing, but all of you and what I have heard so far, right? I'm going to bring that up. I think for me, the shift is from the right to the left, right? We have historically looked at GCCs as, okay, it's a capability center. How do we want to drive efficiency here? How do we ensure that the process is adhered to? How do we ensure that the best-in-class quality is done? What is the credibility that our GCC has in the ecosystem? And I heard a lot of leaders also tell me, Sailaja, early days, we are proving ourselves. And I think that proving has been going on and on. Every time a new GCC comes, there's more proving that is happening, right? We do not need to prove ourselves. I think being here since 1985 as a GCC industry and the GCC capital of the world, I think it is the next phrase. Now, you are all leaders, and we were doing a quick check with Samir and Prashant outside. We see that leaders have at least an average experience of 11 years or more in this forum. So you all have already gone through the journey. You all have heard these words, right? This is about process. This is about efficiency. This is about labor arbitrage. No more are we talking about it. So what is it that we are trying to drive in the AI native GCC? And this is what we are actually talking to our clients to leverage the Indian ecosystem. What we want you all to think as leaders is value creation, right? How can you start contributing to the top line of the enterprise? We heard some great stories earlier from some of our GCC leaders on product innovation, right? How can we drive product innovation? How can we start to take over some of these technologies like AI? We were talking about generative AI. It has now become agentic AI. Now we are talking about multi-agentic. That's kind of moved very fast. And how are we coping up with that? Now, do you have a program through which you are looking at every single activity that happens in your GCC, and you're saying, hang on, why do I do it like this? Right? You are sitting with a wealth of data, a wealth of context, right? And also you have immense business value. I mean, GCCs are entrenched in deep domain. How are you bringing all these three together to be the enterprise of the future? How much are you challenging your principles to say, hey, listen, there's a different way of doing this? So as leaders, one of the things we are advocating for is shift from a process mindset into a value mindset. Can you start looking at outcomes? Can you start looking at how can we fast track a product life cycle, right? And this is where agentic AI is great. I mean, we can say, you heard Rajesh earlier, almost 20 to 30% of our coding is being done by agents today, right? Something unthinkable about 1 year ago. How can we start to use that for faster product development? How can we use some of these tools to create a digital twin to do your testing of the product, a lot faster, prototyping it before you actually go into production? I think that's a big part. Before, for us to do a prototype, we used to look at a sandbox. Oh my God, I can't spare my resources. I have to focus on what I'm doing. Today, prototyping is so much easier. Creation of a digital twin is easier. How much are you advocating for it as leaders, right? That's probably one shift that I'm seeing from process to value. There used to be a conversation year-on-year efficiency. I think many one of us have grown through that, right? Right now, we are saying, this is your innovation engine. And how is that? Like, look at the ecosystem here. One, you got leaders here who are talking about what is cutting edge. We have T-Hub here, where we have all the startups that we can leverage into. How do we bring that into this ecosystem where we can say, hang on, shall we start driving hackathons? Shall we take some of our business problems and we start converting them into what is the art of possible? So the mindset change is not so much an efficiency, but more into an innovation engine. Talent. I think our colleague from Broadridge spoke beautifully about talent. There is the elephant in the room, right? Which is, what will happen to all these jobs if AI takes over? And I'm sure you as leaders are being asked that in forums more publicly and also more privately. The only way out of this for us is to upskill our talent. There are various tools. We were talking about vibe coding, right? And I was trying my hand yesterday, last week on that. And some of you would have seen the post from the LinkedIn founder. Vibe coding helped him create a LinkedIn-like clone in a matter of a few minutes. Right? Something that took his whole life to create, he was able to create in a matter of few minutes. How many of you have tried your hand at vibe coding? And we say, right, as leaders, we need to set examples, and you're all leaders of your enterprise. Have you tried your hand at vibe coding? Have you looked at agentic AI? Have you looked at the processes to say, hey, listen, if I have one agentic AI, and I'll give you an example, right? We had the entire end-to-end SDLC. And we said, look, if the BRD analyst can be an agent, your testing is an agent, and then you're looking at your defect triaging as an agent, you're able to stitch those roles into your SDLC and fast-track your SDLC. And that's the kind of thought process we are looking at from a agentic AI perspective. Again, how are we normalizing this? How are your people coming up with these ideas? Do they have an innovation framework to drive this? Are you running bottoms-up and top-down innovation? I think those are some of the points that I would like you all to kind of think about. It's no more about executing strategy, but it's about defining the enterprise strategy. Where do you want to be? How do you want to infuse stuff like IoT into what you're doing in retail? How do you want to fast-track analytics into what you do in pharmacovigilance? I think that's the art of what we are talking about. And everything we are talking today, and honestly, none of us speakers have actually sat down and calibrated, but it does boil down to these 3 points. As I was listening to many of the speakers, that's what I was thinking, that look, this is what we're talking about, a shift from the right onto the left. And that needs to be led by you as leaders. 3 things, and this is not so much as a cognizant, but I think a process or a framework that has worked for us that I'm willing to share with all of you, right? Can we start looking at your work being completely agentified? Your workforce being very AI capable, and your workplace being very conducive to AI, right? You have collaboration spaces, you have labs, we have hyperscaler partnership, and all the hyperscaler partnerships are in this ecosystem. The largest Google campus is coming here. We have associates from AWS who sit with us. We have Salesforce associates who are here. How do we bring that together to create AI-led work, AI-enabled talent, and a workspace that actually helps drive AI? Do you have an innovation studio? Do you have a lab? Do you have a place where people are able to experiment? Do you have a fail-fast kind of a mechanism? Do you have an innovation office which is constantly looking to bring outside-in perspective? And I want to leave you all with this, right? And this is a question all of us get. Innovation office, how do we drive innovation at scale? It can't be only bottoms up. It can't be only top-down. It has to be both ways. We need grounds-up innovation, every idea to be captured, filtered, coached, and tested. We also need top-down innovation. We need leaders who say, listen, the way we run business or the way we have run business is going to change drastically. And let's embrace it instead of being very, afraid of it. So my parting thought to all of you is, you probably are at the pinnacle of the change that this industry is trying to bring, right? You lead by example. You are the ones who are going to set the tone in your organizations. How are you going to drive that into your enterprise as we pivot from the right to the left? On that note, I just want to say, I want to thank 3AI and also HICIA for an amazing event. We are oversubscribed. We've created a mini traffic jam outside Westin. I think all things that we will remember, so I think huge credit. And we are super excited to be the title partners for this event. And hopefully we'll see many of you in our office. Thank you so much.
Well, once again,